microphone go? Alright. Hey, let's thank, there you go. Let's thank, ta-da. Hey, let's thank, there you go. Let's thank, ta-da. Hello, good morning to you all. It's good to be back here. Thank you to everyone at home for logging in. Thank you to everyone who's come here to set up for us today. Let's have a good morning together. There's a lot of difficult news out there, and we really are praying and hoping that our little time together can be moments of good news in your day and in your week. Just take those little crumbs of bread and let them and allow them to sustain you through the week. I'll just get my brother Josh to give us the acknowledgement. Thank you, brother.
Good morning, church. I want to start by acknowledging on the lands on which we meet, the lands of the Gadigal and Bidjigal and Mbirigal people. I want to pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and just remember always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thanks, brother. Right. Let's have a word of prayer. Fear not, for I am with you. I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. Child, you are mine. When you pass through the waters, they shall not overcome you, nor shall you be drowned. When you pass through the flames, you will not be burned. For I am the Holy One of Israel, the Lord your God, and you are beloved and precious in my sight. In my sight. Amen. You are beloved and precious in God's sight. We have a few beautiful videos we'd like to share with you. Does it matter the order, Tim? All right. The first one only goes for about 5 or 10 seconds, but it could very well change your life. It should.
Hey guys, we love you all. We miss you all. Can't wait to the end of lockdown to see you all again. we just thought you might like to meet our little man Zenith. He was born on Wednesday. And happy Sunday, guys.
Thank you for your prayers and your thoughts. Happy Sunday.
How good's that? I'll tell you what, how good is that? That is the best. Kind of makes you bring a tear to your eye. We love you, Josh. We love you, Jamila, if you're logging in. So beautiful, so precious. There is incredible joy and incredible tiredness in their eyes. Can you see it? Can you feel it? Hey, if you would like to send them a message or a note or send them a card, you can send it through me. They only live about 2 kilometres from my house. So I've already dropped off 2 or 3 beautiful little letters that have been written and cards and love gifts that have been dropped off there. So that's easy for me to do on the way in and out of Wayside. Wow, what a story. If that's not what the definition of awesome is, I don't know what is. Talking about awesome, we've got our wonderful band here again today. This fella is, it's his birthday today. You know what, if I made a joke and said he's 21, you'd say, is he that old? I thought he was 16. Yeah, he's a bit of a Benjamin Button, this guy. So let's have some, you got it? Yeah, we'll work it all out. Alright, so, yes. Over to you guys. Let's have some beautiful worship.
No, it's not my birthday, it's Adam's birthday. Oh, happy birthday, Trust. Alright, we'll start with Children of the Living God. 1, 2, 3, 4. He has made. Now, let's do We Shall Overcome. Adam will lead us in We Shall Overcome. We shall overcome.
what an amazing, beautiful way to lift our hearts this morning. I can just imagine Josh holding Zenith up like the lion. Oh dear, isn't that beautiful? Thank you, everyone. So beautiful. The King will return one day, and it's beautiful to see the life that's in Josh's very being. And Jamila, our love goes to you through this time. I'm going to read the psalm, then we're going to have a beautiful little video treat, and then we'll get into the gospel, and Graham will take us through. Psalm 111. Praise the Lord. I will extol the Lord with all my heart in the council of the upright and in the assembly. Great are the works of the Lord. They are pondered by all who delight in them. Glorious and majestic are his deeds, and his righteousness endures forever. He has caused his wonders to be remembered. The Lord is gracious and compassionate. Grace and compassion are the attributes we all need through this moment. And talking about somebody who embodies grace and compassion and love, I could think of no one better than Marty and Narelle. So let's hear from Marty and Narelle. And if you follow them on Facebook, you'll notice Martin's been doing a whole series of meditations through his teapot collection. So here's the next instalment for us.
And I come to you
Oh, hello Waysiders. Welcome to this week's edition of Lost in Lockdown. We're going a bit potty here, I can tell you. I wonder which pot we'll use today. The Carlton 8 cuppa, the Chelsea 6 cuppa, or the Carlton 2 cuppa. I think the Carlton 8 cuppa. I wonder who's in here today. Just taking the lid off. Having a little look. Yeah, I can see Bronwyn, and I can see Emily and Taras. I can see John and Graham, and Karen and Michelle. I can see both Kylies. I can see Robin and Trevor, and Andrew and Josh. I can see Lani, and Kerry Ann and Stephen and Taras. And I can see Tim and Trevor. Oops! There's Julian and Masako. And I can see Peter and Byron. Oh, and I can see you too. Come and share a cup of tea with me. Today we wanted to take a review of last week's message that John gave us. And look, John, you did a great job at working on the bread of life. But we felt that you were a little bit at sea when it came to eggs. And we realised that apart from a high carb diet, we all need a high protein diet as well. It's part of a well balanced, godly combination. Now when we're talking about our friend the egg, it raises three major philosophical questions. And these questions really start with the dilemma of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Now the dilemma stems from the observation that all chickens are hatched from chicken eggs and that all chicken eggs are laid by chickens. In this metaphorical adjective, a scenario develops of an infinite regression or sequence of recurring events. Confused? So am I. Aristotle concluded that the dilemma was an infinite sequence with no true origin. 4 centuries later, Plutarch, a philosopher, described the dilemma as a great and weighty problem concerning the origin of creation. As for science, well, the answer is that the egg came first. Since eggs are synonymous with chickens, it leads us on to the second question that we need to answer. And that is, why did the chicken cross the road? Now, a great number of philosophers have weighed into this one. Back to our friend Aristotle, he believed that the chicken needed to actualise its potential as it was crossing the road. Epicurus, our fun friend, postulated that the chicken crossed the road for fun. Hippocrates suggested that the chicken had an excess of phlegm in its pancreas, and this is why it crossed the road.
Gross.
And Plato suggested that chicken crossed the road for the greater good. Coming a bit closer to our century, we look on the luminaries of Captain Kirk, the captain of the Starship Enterprise, who suggested that the chicken crossed the road to Bondi go where no chicken had been before. Douglas Adams in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy postulated the answer 42. Buddha said to ask this question was to deny your chicken nature. And Albert Einstein suggested that if the chicken crossed the road or the road crossed the chicken really depended on your frame of reference. To the Waysider, the chicken crossed Hugh Street to get to the chapel, of course, and in COVID-19 times, well, we crossed the road to get a vaccination, and I hope you've got yours. Which leads us to the last question that John raised last week, and that is, are eggs good or bad for you? He was really sitting on the fence on this one, but we defer to theology and the words of Jesus, who in Luke 11:11-13 said, and I quote, "Which of you fathers, if your son asks for a fish, will give him a snake instead? Or if he asks for an egg, will give him a scorpion? If then you, who are evil," it says, "know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give the Holy Spirit to those who ask him?" And of course, the conclusion in the Christian world is that eggs are in fact good for you. And this is an egg laid by our very own Mirabelle. Okay? So, in conclusion, do be an egg giver. Don't be a scorpion giver. Until next week. Bye.
Oh, thank you, Marty. Yes. Graham, you get your review next week from someone else from home. Thanks, Marty. Thank you so much. And let's keep every one of you at home in our prayers. I'm just seeing a few of the comments, thinking about particularly Nikki at this time, who's back in hospital again, problems with her liver, and a few other members of our community who are having a few health problems at this time as well. But thank you so much for sending that video through, Martin. I think to that I would add the postmodern evangelical would add, is there really a chicken at all? Well, the chicken is inside of us all along, you know. So yes, you are a good egg, Marty. Thank you, Emily. Right, let's have the gospel. Thank you for sending that video through. I'm going to pick on one of you next week to send me a video through as well, because it really is good for us all to see you in your own little habitats at this time, because you know the amount of interactions and that we're having is seriously curtailed through this time, particularly who knows what midnight means for the rest of the next few weeks for us as the police look to extend a few of their powers through this time. But I know there's one power, which is the power of connection, that's going to help get us through these next few weeks and months. We're reading here today from John chapter 6, verses 51 through to 58. More on bread. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. Then they began to argue sharply among themselves, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" Jesus said to them, "Very truly, I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day. For my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your ancestors ate manna and died, but whoever feeds on this bread will live forever. This is the word of the Lord, and good luck to you, Graham, preaching from that.
Thanks, Nicola. Enjoyed the music, thank you. When I bring notes, you really should worry. I've realised this morning that for every Sunday in the past 40 years, I've stood in front of someone to teach the Bible. Every Sunday for the past 40 years. So you would think, wouldn't you, that it's got to get easier. And the opposite's true. It's getting harder. And it's getting harder because I'm still learning. I know ministers, I won't name anybody, but I could, who preached their way through the first 3 years of the lectionary, and then for the next 40 years just looked up their notes from the first 3 years and gave it to you again. But that has never been me. I've always been hungry to learn, and for that reason there are times when this is a difficult exercise. Today's one of them. There are historical problems in this text. There are philosophical problems in this text. There are problems of history. And the final problem is, who gives a rat's ass? So, part of me is really, through this week I've agonised over, is it right to lead somebody through a swamp and then over a jagged mountain? Or is it better to just get in a helicopter and kind of head in the right direction, although you didn't really negotiate the land? It's kind of tough. Well, we should sing a verse of God Will Make a Way right now. John's Gospel is not like the other three. The Synoptic Gospels more or less say, here's what happened. And John's Gospel says more like, well, here's what it means. And it's the last of the Gospels written. Now, that's relevant, believe it or not, because even conservative scholars would say this was written 30 to 40 years after the fall of Jerusalem. So that changes entirely phrases like the Jews, because Jewish religion is done. If you take the temple away, it's done. And so the Jews' culture was completely turned inside out as they had to invent a new rabbinic kind of system. And so prophecies like not one stone will be left upon another, that's interesting, it happened 40 years before the writing. It changes everything. So there are lots of difficulties to try and negotiate. John's Gospel, the first 4 verses, are the only verses in the whole New Testament written in classical Greek. Classical Greek. What's the chances that this book was written by John the fisherman? The answer has to be slim. This was written, I think, by a very highly educated Greek scholar. Someone familiar with the great tradition of Greek scholarship. Now, you've probably overdosed already because you've had a big dose here with Marty. So forgive me, but there was an old philosopher 600 years before Jesus, his name was Heraclitus, who said, "Panto rei," which is Greek for everything's in flow. Everything is in flow. He was famous for saying you can't jump into the same river twice, because by the time you go back, all those water molecules are different. and you're different. And the Greeks at the time made fun of him, saying you should borrow money from him, because the next day you'd say, well, it wasn't me who borrowed the money. But it's true enough, everything is in flow. What can you tell me something that isn't in a process of change? Harbour Bridge? No, it's rusting away. Uluru? No, it's wearing away. Everything is in flow. And this bothered Plato and lots of other people. So Heraclitus said, well, how can we know a God through all of this? And interestingly enough, even though he comes from a culture of many gods, he kind of spoke of many gods as one God, and he said, so how can we know God through this changing world? And his answer to that was through the word, through the logos. There is a logos that brings to us a God, even in what he said was cataclysma. On the one hand, cataclysm is a word we now use for just means upheaval, but originally it meant flood. And he said through cataclysma and through ekpyrosis. Well, ecology means earth. Pyro is fire, pyromaniac is somebody loves fire. Ekpyrosis. So the word comes to us through the earth flooding and the earth burning, and through many other contradictory ways. What holds this together, what gives it coherence, Heraclitus said, is the logos, the word. You can translate that word in many ways: reason, word, argument. We use the word all the time. If you study rocks, you study geology. Logic. So we use the word. We're familiar with the word. John's Gospel begins, in the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and the Logos was God. What's the chances that whoever wrote this Gospel was well familiar with Heraclitus? I would say the chances are big. They're big. So, John 6. Going to try and end the pain for you. So Jesus is talking about, you have to eat my flesh and drink my blood, and that's a bit weird. And the people listening to him thought it was a bit weird. Now, John's Gospel is primarily concerned to tell you not so much what happened, but what it means. Now, when a story pops up in John's Gospel that doesn't occur in the other Gospels, you have to ask yourself, am I hearing what happened, or am I hearing what it means? So, did Jesus say all of this? I don't know. It's kind of convenient that it came so late that the church is already now saying that unless you come for the Eucharist, you're lost. That's convenient. And it may well be the design of the text. Who knows? But what the effect it had in this story was, Jesus at that time had loads and loads of followers, and they all said, this is too hard, we're off. And then Jesus gets down to, there's only 12 left. There was 60 a minute ago, now there's about 12. And he goes to the 12 and he says, so have I offended you? Do you want to nick off as well? And Peter says, well, it's a bit late now, isn't it? We've left homes and jobs, and here we are. This is a foreign people you've put us in. Where else would we go? So, Jesus gets to the punchline. It's always encouraging. There's another whole thing that I'm leaving out because for another day. But Jesus gets to the punchline in verse 63, which is just beyond where we are here. And he says, the Spirit gives life, literally quickens to life. The Spirit quickens to life. And the flesh without the Spirit profits nobody. Really wakes up for me the verse, which does occur in the other synoptic gospels, is what does it profit if you gain the whole world and lose your very self in the process? It wakes that up. Very relevant verse. But here he says, so it's the Spirit that gives life. Spirit is pneuma, which is wind. It's the wind, the wind of God that gives life. And the flesh, without wind, doesn't give much value. Jesus said, I have spoken the words of wind, the holy wind. And that is life and is the Spirit. So I think the only... if you were with me, I'd keep going. If we had more people going here, because there's a whopping great subject that I'm busting to deal with, but we'll do it another day. But I just want to say this, and let's punch it home with... Jesus said it's the Spirit which is quickening and giving life. If you can sit and hold the world still long enough to achieve peace, you're not a spiritual person, you're an ideological person. Everything moves. Panto rei. Everything flows. You think you can take a picture of something or someone and you've got it? You haven't at all, you're just frozen. The thing itself is moving. I reckon it's hilarious back when people could travel, that you'd see busloads of tourists come here to Bondi and they all run out and go click, 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 been to Bondi, back in the bus and gone. You haven't been to Bondi? We take pictures of each other thinking that we captured something. You've captured nothing. You've allowed something to escape is what's happened. Panto rei, everything moves. Well, how in this moving world can we find coherence? And the answer is through the Logos, who speaks the word of Spirit. And I would say all I want to do for you today is give you a severe wind warning. If you want to live a life that is Spirit and that gives life, then look out for severe winds. Don't aspire to be somebody who holds it still, because that's not life. Hanging on to the past is not life. In lots of ways, it's like you're swinging on a trapeze. You know, there's another trapeze you should grab, but you can't grab it until you let go of this one. Panto rei, everything flows. Brace yourself for a wind warning. It's going to be blowy if you're going to live a life that is life-giving. That's it. Let's have some music to take us out. What are you going to do for us?
Make you feel my love.
Ah.
You know, I'd love you. Do you still remember the David White poem?
I couldn't do it well enough.
I've got it here if you want it.
Oh, yeah? Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, you can say it. Everything's waiting. That's the one. Can you read it?
I can.
Oh, yes, you can with your new eyes.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay.
Marty's poem inspired this, I think.
Special. Jeez Louise. No, I can't do that. Can you do that? You want to hear John read this poem?
Oh dear,
Come on, John.
Let's do it.
You do it.
Inspired by Marty.
And then after that, the musicians will take us out. And thank you so much.
Here we go. David White, everything is waiting for you. Where am I? This is a beautiful poem. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone. as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you. And the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of this world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting